On the record.
All right, thanks, Jim. Just for a quick sound check for everybody who's participating virtually, are you able to hear us okay?
Yes.
All right, awesome, thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming in person and virtually to Water Use Advisory Council meeting. I'm very happy to report that we do have quorum today. Thank you to all of those who made the drive into Lansing. I know with the construction that Lansing is kind of the place where you can't get there from here. So thanks for braving that to come in. We will, since we have quorum, go ahead and do we have past meeting? How many past meeting minutes do we need to cover for today? Is it the last June and August? Okay, so with folks' permission, knowing that we've had some updates, and thank you to everyone who's been keeping up with this as we've been going along, and thanks to Bree for keeping track of the edits and amendments and notes. We will go ahead, in addition to approving our last meeting minutes and approving our agenda today, we'll also go ahead and approve meeting minutes from June officially, so we can get those out of the way as well. So I'll start out kind of at the top of our agenda, if nobody minds. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Let's, for the benefit of those who are participating online and may not be able to see the camera and everyone in the room, let's go around the room and identify everybody who's here in person. And then, Jim, are you able to record down who all is participating virtually? I'm seeing that. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, let's do introductions for folks in the room so that those online know who's here, and we'll start right down there at the end.
Sure, Austin.
I'm Austin York. I'm from Eagle.
Jim Milne, Water Use Assessment Supervisor, Geologic Resources Management Division in Eagle.
Brianna Hammondtree, Jeff.
Great. Good afternoon. Laura Campbell with Michigan Farm Bureau.
Brian Burrows with Trout Unlimited.
Doug Needham, Michigan Aggregates Association.
Katie Lindstrom with Bar Engineering Company.
Dave Hamilton, retired from the Nature Conservancy.
Megan Napier with DPT Fearless Environmental Services.
Megan Tinsley with Michigan Environmental Council.
Dave Ventura and Michigan Lakes and Streams Association.
Joel Henry, ECD.
Rachel Proctor, Consumers Energy.
Andy LeBaron, Eagle.
Folks in the back.
Matthew Cameron, Eagle.
Krista Hagerman, Eagle.
Dependent, Eagle.
Ann Arnett, Eagle.
Simon DeLeo, Eagle One from the Great Lakes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay. What I will do then is first ask for any additional edits or amendments to the minutes. You might notice that Bree was kind enough to send those out in an editable form when she sent the draft minutes out for everyone's review. Hopefully you got a chance to make any changes that you saw, but this would be a good time if there were any additional changes you needed to make or didn't get a chance to submit to her, to let us know if you have any other changes that you need to make to the minutes.
Just as a quick note for me, I did receive ones for June from Kelly. And then I did receive Jim since he was out for August. So I have the Word document compiled.
Okay. And folks online, any other changes or amendments you'd like to make to, we'll do August meeting minutes first, since that was the last meeting. Okay. And then let's go ahead and see if there are any additional changes that need to be made to the meeting minutes from June. Oh, raised hands. Okay, well, barring any objection then, we usually operate on consensus for our recommendations and approvals in this council. So I'll take silence as assent, and we'll, unless there are objections, we'll go ahead and approve those minutes as finalized for June and August. And I'll go ahead and ask if there are any changes that anyone needs to make to today's agenda.
Again, not seeing any raised hands. I did drop the agenda too in the group chat with them both, that hand, so.
Perfect, thank you. All right. Well, at this point then, we will go ahead and take public comment. Again, we do two public comment periods for this meeting. The first one is we like to stick to agenda items if possible. We'll have another public comment period that will be at the end of this meeting. That'll be for kind of any relevant topic that anyone would like to bring up. But in terms of public comments, anyone who would like to comment on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we ripped through the first part of our agenda here. We'll turn it over. I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Brian, and we will start in with committee reports.
Thanks. First up is data committee. I will say that, after the last meeting, we tried to take all the sign up information for committees and council contact information, tried to go through those just to get our list of data committee members correct. Reach out to some of the agency folks for confirmation of who they wanted listed on there. And then yesterday, if you were on one of those lists, you should have gotten an email from me asking you to confirm that you did want to be on there. So that would be the first red flag that I put out. If you didn't get something from me yesterday and you do want to be on the data committee, email me and let me know that. Because if you didn't get something from me, then you're not on it. And we're just trying to clean that up. We had kind of a working email list with some MIA names for quite some time. We had a contact list update and other people we kind of knew, and they weren't all the same. So taking a little moment to make sure we're not excluding anybody from being on the data committee that wants and receive the notifications. With that said, there's a poll out right now for scheduling. So again, if you want to be part of it, email me right away. And like when I get out of here, I'll include you and give you a link to it. I'll wait until tomorrow to finalize that. It's looking like there's a most popular time emerging for next week. So we're going to try to meet. Key point of the meeting that'll likely be next week is to discuss any recommendations for the 2024 report. Obviously, at this point, if we have not had any brought to our attention, we haven't identified any, so they would have to be recommendations that are fairly easy to work, ones that don't take a massive amount of exploration time and group discussion, but that doesn't preclude there being a really good recommendation that could get consensus support pretty easily. So we're going to try to work through that. And then we're going to move on to all the things that the committee has to oversee the implementation of. And there's quite a few things. The committee has input on my own. I've started the process with a bunch of different folks just to start getting the wheels going for some of the 2022 recommendations that received funding and that will become available on October 1. Just kind of starting to do some of the background coordination for that. So that's it. For the data committee that I can think of. Is there anybody in the room that did want to be on it that it's not currently included? So I can take care of it quickly. Get a quorum. All right. Okay, any questions online for data committee? Any other questions, comments? Okay. Not hearing any, we'll move on to models committee.
Before we start on models committee, Brian, do you mind, since Frank just arrived, if we ask him to introduce himself for the folks online real quick?
I'm Frank Etowageshik, from the United Tribes of Michigan, live up in Harbor Springs.
Thanks, Frank.
Wonderful, thank you for making it all the way down here.
Please, to make a quorum, really. Make my heart beat.
We were nervous at about 5 minutes to 1.
All right, Dave.
Okay, Models Committee, I mentioned that the 2022 recommendations came through with funding that will start October 1st. So we have two projects that will get going then. And I just want to talk about them just briefly because if you're on the Models Committee and you want to be on the TAC the work group that helps work with these, I'd like you to let me know. So the two options are, one is to conduct downstream accounting research. And this will be looking at a lot of data and just trying to understand what could be going on as far as downstream, looking at literature, looking at empirical analysis, just doing a lot of data analysis. And I think Brian, from the committee want to be involved in this too and join in with some other work that's DNR's been working on. So I think this will be a very interesting project. So if you're on Miles Committee and you'd like to be on the work group, let me know. The second one is evaluate stream flow depletion effects downstream through a stream network. This one is more of a modeling exercise. U.S. Geological Survey will be working on that. Quite a bit of work that we've done with it, but it will be model oriented, trying to understand how stream flows combine. If you take water out, what does it affect downstream area? So that as depletion occurs in the water management area, how is it propagating downstream? So that'll be mainly a modeling type effort. Again, if you're on the models committee and you're interested in being on the work group, let me know. We have our site-specific technical work group that's still continuing to meet. We're working through a list of about 9 different things. One of them has come to this council itself, which is dealing with the statutory time limits for SSRs. We talked about that 2 or 3 meetings ago. We will rework that Miles Committee and come back for revision based on the input that we received here. And we're also working on developing a proposal to do some pretty detailed monitoring to try to better understand what stream flow depletion looks like in an area. We had a presentation by USGS Wisconsin a few weeks ago, an excellent study. If you are at all interested in a copy, take a look at that study because it's very, very good, very useful. We would like to do something that's similar here in Michigan, tie together monitoring, modeling to better understand stream flow depletion. A very intense effort. So Howard Reeves is coming up with the first draft on that. We'll be talking about that Miles Committee at our next meeting, which isn't scheduled yet. Will be coming up soon. So I think that's it for right now. Questions come up about the performance tests. We're working on that. We have comments and we're sorting through those. We'll figure out what to do with all that. So we haven't forgotten any attention to percentages. I think that's it. Any questions?
So did you say that we might expect 2 different topics to come in the form of a recommendation at maybe the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the models committee in the room or online?
The proposal that you're looking at to sort of replicate the study in Wisconsin, would that be something that would be included in the council's like report? Or
Yes.
suggested
Yes. It will be a recommendation to the legislature. Yes.
Not hearing any other questions. Thanks, Dave. It sounds like by next month, there'll be quite a bit for us to digest.
I hope so.
Thank you. Thank you. That moves us, because we have quorum, especially into the new topics committee. We have had discussions at the last meeting and maybe a couple before that Pat has shared with us that the new topics committee right now may not be very relevant and necessary. As a background reminder, the statute that created us does not really speak to committee structures. That's sort of at our deference to create or remove as we see fit that aids our function. So given some past discussions about that not having a lot of need right now, and knowing that we can reform it or something else whenever we choose in the future, I would open up for discussion. I guess I should say I will make a motion that we vote to eliminate the new topics committee and support. Support, thank you. Now open for discussion. Does anybody have any comments that they'd like to make about?
Kelly has her hand raised.
Please go ahead, Kelly.
I'm just wondering if this might be a little bit premature because the water user group research has been overseen by the new topics committee. So how would we move updates from that? Who would be responsible on the council for that? Should this be something that we do after that project is completed and finalized so that there is at least an entity that should be reporting on that to the full council? Like what would be our plan to keep track of that program if we get rid of the new topics committee now?
Yep. Well, I would say that the default will be that that's a topic that we track as a whole body. Right? So if we had envisioned the new topics committee being the place where people could bring truly new things, it could get a little preliminary investigation, research, define it better, and then somewhat equivalent to a legislative body, it would be shunted to the right standing committee. That particular project just stayed within the new topics committee. Thank you to the new topics committee members for shepherding that all the way through. There wasn't a great, natural fit of another committee. So in the absence of the new topics committee, that just becomes something that we have to track as the Water Use Advisory Council whole. And knowing that it's nearing conclusion, we have a presentation scheduled for it, the next one. And Pat's indicated as well personally that he recommends that we make sure that we keep track of it. And he's willing to help us do that until it's through that phase.
And that's what I was gonna say, Pat agreed to do that, which I think would help. So I concur with the proposed resolution. And I think that if we do have something that comes up, and we'll report on the committee if appropriate. But I think we should do it on an ad hoc basis. If something comes up, what's something specific, whatever that is.
Well, at some risk, since I haven't talked to my co-chair about this, could we volunteer for the implementation committee to be kind of the folks who are the point of contact in terms of if there's follow-up or recommendations to come from that study? I think that's probably, other than the new topics committee, that's probably the best fit.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if you guys can do that, that would be great. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows, just because of the committee that was handling it for a while is gone, doesn't mean we'll drop the subject. It'll either be the whole or we'll assign it to a committee. Okay.
I just wanted to add that I would agree with the idea that once the project is complete and there's recommendations and a report for the full council to consider, then the council should determine how to move those forward. And that could be forming a new sub-work group to consider those and figure out what the next steps are. But it doesn't seem to fit under new topics anymore because it's not a new topic. It just might need its own work group then to take the report and figure out what the next steps are.
Any more discussion? All right, all in favor, at least in person and quorum, maybe in spirit online, but all in favor of eliminating the new topics committee now, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Moving on, Conservation and Efficiency Committee update.
I think that's going to be me, and I apologize for not being in person, but most everyone in my household is sick and remaining home from school with fevers, and I didn't feel great this morning, so wanted to make sure that I wasn't passing this on to any of you.
Thank you for keeping your germs to yourself.
You're welcome. You're welcome. During our last committee, we kind of started talking about some of our follow-up pieces, and we realized that there was a grant out there last year for diesel engines to be retrofitted if they're being used for irrigation to some sort of electric or propane type options, which would be more environmentally friendly. We found that there were no participants in that grant option. And when we really kind of dug into asking growers why they didn't participate, many of them kind of listed out some issues that they're having with the energy suppliers themselves and some of the costs associated with that. So we decided to form a subcommittee that would really dig down and investigate different strategies for overcoming the barriers that we've been finding for electricity availability for those irrigation pumps, to be able to participate in that retrofitting program. So we've got a subcommittee that's going to engage with MSU hosted Michigan Agricultural Energy Council growers and just really start that conversation and figure out how we can get past some of those roadblocks that we had identified. So when it comes to implementing our existing funded projects, so we've got the Water Conservation Best Management Project, and the Alliance for Water has been making really good strides in their stakeholder engagement and doing interviews with those groups. Shout out to Mike Alimo from the Michigan Commerce. There we go. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. Thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for helping with those connections and kind of help getting that group together. Katie Micah from the Office of the Great Lakes has been participating in those interviews with the water users as part of that project. So we're excited to see what kind of comes out of that. Moving on to the water conservation and efficiency practices in agriculture. So MSU Extension has hired both educators. They have their first advisory committee meeting 3 days from now on September 13th. And I believe they had a full advisory council, except they were still missing someone from the USDA. So at our meeting last week, we kind of identified several different folks that we could reach out to make sure that that advisory committee is whole for their first meeting. With all that being said, we are going to be preparing like a progress report for each of those two projects for the 2024 report to the legislative body. In looking at the future, we're considering like a water conservation pilot best management grant program, kind of a concept for the Office of the Great Lakes to work with a committee, with the Water Conservation and Efficiency Committee, to develop a pilot program to fund different water conservation pilot projects at the community level. So we felt that having a recommendation going to the legislative body probably is not our best route with this, just because A, we don't know if we would get funding, B, we don't know when funding would come, and kind of the logistics of how do you share money and move money for a grant type pilot project could be difficult. So Emily had some really good ideas and suggestions for potentially funding that through the Michigan Great Lakes Protection Fund instead of the legislative recommendations through the Water Use Advisory Council. So I think that brings us to the end. It looks like there is already a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry, I raised my hand by an accident.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, I think Emily's online and Simon's in the room. If anyone has questions, we're happy to answer them.
I'll ask one. So it sounds like, just planning ahead for our October, November meetings, it sounds like at this point, it is not certain and maybe not likely that you bring forth a proposal for an actual report recommendation. Is
I
that
would say
correct?
we're not planning on bringing a recommendation to the WUAC for the legislative report. We're going to just continue to work with the committee and look at some existing funding that we have through the Office of the Great Lakes for the potential pilot project grant program to be funded by the Protection Fund. And for two reasons. One, we've got some funding available that we need to spend. And two, we've been pretty busy with the other two projects that we've got funded under the Water Use Advisory Council.
Understood.
And with the additional funding that just went through, that was for the 2022 recommendations, I believe. We were looking at updating that mobile irrigation lab for 2024 recommendations, but because that funding went through, we've kind of stopped and abandoned that at this point in time so that we're not muddying the waters there. And we'll wait to see kind of how that funding is going to be used and how that shakes out. I know that our committee definitely talked about having some language that goes into the full council report regarding the need to look at how populations will be moving due to climate change, and just kind of keeping that on people's radar. But we're not going to have a recommendation around any of that.
And one other thing I'll add that I see is not on the slide, and I've been in and out traveling over the weekend. So we are through our office working on putting together a master's project concept for a team of University of Michigan SEAS students, a multidisciplinary team to look at, what if Michigan and the Great Lakes region were to become this climate haven that some assume that may occur, kind of looking at the existing data and models and trends in land use changes, agriculture, other major water users, and how their water use is changing over time, just to help us better understand what's existing research around population trends, land use trends, water user trends, and what might Michigan look like in the future in terms of water use and water demand and impacts from climate on water resources, and what kinds of policies and strategies, tools might we need to help us prepare for those changes. So we're in the process of working on that project concept. We just submitted a draft of the initial proposal to University of Michigan on Sunday, I think so 2 days ago. And then we'll be working with a few committee members to kind of flesh that out into a fuller project concept. So hopefully we'll get matched with the team. But this is a topic that's been under a lot of discussion with the committee over the last 6 to 8 months.
Any other questions for the committee?
I just mentioned I'm the one that keeps raising the climate issues, so.
Thank you.
Frank will be circling back with you now that we got an initial concept fleshed out. So.
Thank you. And I appreciate the outlook too. I know that as we segue to the implementation committee update, we are at that point where by next month we got to move into report creation, and just knowing what work we have in front of us, what content we have, but also recommendations can be difficult, right? Committees work on them forever, talk about them, but then the rest of us as a whole have to kind of dig into them and see if we reach consensus. And so it's a lot to plan for time-wise. But with that said, will you guys fill us in on what your thoughts are about the work that you've been doing, need to do, and what you may need from the other committees as far as pulling another report together?
Yep, absolutely. So first of all, huge credit to Doug for keeping track of this spreadsheet, without which we would all be lost because I can't keep track of this stuff. So thank you for keeping track of this. Here's what we're thinking in terms of timeline for report creation and kind of when we're hoping to get stuff from people. So what I'm envisioning, and maybe kind of starting with the format of the report itself, because that's going to kind of determine some of the timing. I'm thinking that the report will sort of work backwards in time, right? You don't want to bury the lead. So we want to put new recommendations first. So you have like your executive summary and all your cool pictures and stuff. And then first section is 2024 recommendations, especially any that come with funding. But also if there's anything of particular pertinence that we want to make sure that the legislature knows is new for 2024. That'd be section 1. Section 2 would be identifying what's being done and, kind of the status of projects that were recommended in 2022. Now that there has been some funding that's been appropriated, I will work with Jim and James Clift to try to kind of figure out where we are with those and, if there are any additional needs for getting those started. And then section 3 is going to be reporting on here's everything that's going on that's either in progress or done from 2020. I don't think the spreadsheet itself will be in the report, or maybe it'll be an appendix, but kind of a summary, like a highlight document of here's everything we recommended. Thank you for the money. Here's what we did with it, in order to kind of organize those out. So the people who want to dig into those details can see them in the report. Those who don't can read the executive summary in section 1 and off they go. So if there's no major objections to sort of that being the format of the report, what I'm thinking about in terms of timeline is that we can start working on sections 2 and 3 right now, and have a draft of those ready to start, have people start reviewing. We'll get those to Bree so that they can be sent out to the committee in advance of our next meeting in October. So when you get the notice of the meeting and the agenda and all that stuff, you'll also get a copy of those sections of the report, very rough draft. And this will be your opportunity to start digging through those and figuring out edits or additions or changes that you want to make to stuff that's already being done, right? So it's 2022 and 2020. Ideally on our next meeting on October 8th, I'd like to have drafts of any 2024 recommendations. And thank you everybody for coming for quorum. If we have quorum again in October, we can vote on the concept of those, and those can be drafted into the report and can go out the same way. We'll work with Bree to get those sent out in advance of the November meeting so that everybody has time to read the drafts and make any recommended changes. In November, we can discuss any changes, approve any of those changes to the new recommendations, and then the report will get prettied up and finalized so that we'll get one last pass at it before our December meeting, and we'll give it our final approval and party on our meeting in December 10th. So that's my vision for the timeline for the report.
So one of the other things that I guess I want to make sure that we put in there is any of the past recommendations that need continued funding. It gets a little confusing right now as we look at that because we still have some money kind of left over from 2020 that we think might be able to carry into 2022. So I think that's going to be a spot that we really got to make some time to see what tasks are out there that need that. I think that would be very important. And one thing to remember too, that when recommendations come, Eagle has asked us to be very clear with kind of specifics as far as what that recommendation truly is for, so that they don't sit and scratch their heads.
Yep. And then once this report is finalized, we have, the statute obliges us to send that report to the Senate Majority Leader, Speaker of the House, the Ag and the Natural Resources Committee chairs for both the House and the Senate, plus the directors of the Quality of Life agencies. So that's MDARD, Eagle, and DNR. We'll do that in December to meet our statutory requirement. But then knowing that we have an election, there's going to be a huge turnover in committees, in folks who are going to be in the legislature. Our plan is to send the report out again, probably early February, as soon as those committee appointments and chairs are identified and announced. So we'll be sending the report out twice, essentially. But that's really just so that we can make sure that we're following the statute by getting it in every 2 years, and also then getting it in front of those new legislators coming in, knowing that they're going to be jumping right into budget cycle. And that report will go out jointly from the tri-chairs.
So I'm hearing that one thing that would be useful pretty quickly is for some of the committees to ensure that you all taking the first stab at rough drafting have the most accurate, up-to-date, like implementation status of everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And we could maybe count on you, the committee, to cover some of the standard implementation history. So just kind of
Yep.
like, hey, the 2020 were funded at X date 2 years later, and kind of setting up the stuff that applies to.
Yep.
All of them. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so committee should be getting you a good update of implementation status for all of their stuff within.
Yeah, we have updates
next
as
couple
of the
weeks.
end of July. So essentially, if anything has happened since July,
Right.
let us know so that we can make sure that it's included in the report.
We have any other questions, discussion for the implementation committee? Right, okay. Well, it means that it sounded logical and fair and understood. If you don't get something when you need it by, don't be afraid to reach out to committee chairs and remind them what you need it by. Okay. Thank you for the work.
Mhm.
Okay, next agenda item. I'm gonna try to navigate this one as well as I can. I can say that I can make an attempt at this to kind of govern this process, or if the committee would like, I can thrust it unexpectedly totally on Jim Milne and to handle the whole thing. But as I mentioned last time, I don't believe it turned out where there's any actual scenario where somebody wanted to be nominated and somebody needs to stop serving
Yeah.
in the role.
Yeah.
So.
We don't have any competitive votes for
I'll
this.
look for a gut check, not an official vote, gut check. We feel comfortable if I kind of preside over getting us through this?
Yeah, I feel comfortable.
Okay, all right, thank you for the trust. Okay, Bree, do you have the list of what we received for all the positions?
Yes, it would be like.
As she's working it up as a reminder, really, your nominees for committee chairs are in all instances, the currently serving co-chairs and no new nominations. For the tri-chairs, it was the tri-chairs and we received no new nominations of interest for that. The executive committee, we have nominations for all the people serving plus the addition of one. And since there are no given, the executive committee is not bound or described. And so we already last month started inviting Buddy Sebastian, who had been nominated for that, to serve. It's not a cabal or votes. It's just we will try to make sure our agenda is done and stuff. So we've already kind of incorporated that in. So if it's okay, we can review that. Did you receive any different nominations since last month?
I have not seen any additional nominations, just modifications to the contact, like updating the contact information sheet, which I hope is to just get that finalized if we have quorum today. Obviously, the contact sheet can be updated as needed from here, but we'll have what we have right now on file, so.
Okay. I did not receive any. Did you receive?
Did not.
I've not seen any others. Can you do me a favor? I think I have the brain power and memory to probably say everybody's names and which positions, but if you could show it.
Yeah, let me
Or I ask for.
just drop it in,
Oh, sure.
and then I'm sure,
You should be able to,
sure.
yeah.
Just one moment, I appreciate everybody's patience.
I think, no, take your time. I think it's more appropriate everybody gets to see it one more time before I ask for it.
Alright.
Yeah, the only additional conversation that we've had is we do know that Tom Frazier is looking for a replacement to represent local governments. And so we are standing ready to assist him if he needs help with getting that new nomination to his appointing legislator to make that switch. So he's still serving until he finds a replacement, but is actively looking for a replacement. That doesn't really have anything to do with committee chairs. I just wanted to make sure the group is aware that that's the only other membership conversation that I've had.
Yeah.
Or I just want to emphasize, I think that's a really important position to have local government.
Absolutely it is.
representative. It's critical.
Yeah, and so I'm very grateful to Tom that he's willing to serve until he finds a replacement.
And also, like I say, it's not just the township associations, the county association, there's other local municipal government organizations that would be tapped, so.
Mhm.
You might want to get Tom's help. That,
Yep, we last left it at, Tom was looking for someone, and if he was unable to identify somebody, was gonna get back to us for some help with ranging out his inquiry to a larger group.
Can everybody see my screen on the call?
I see it on the team.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's not-
It's not gonna show up on the
Okay,
screen.
if it's not gonna show up, then I will go ahead for the people in the room and read it for you, just for completeness. So for the executive council, we have Buddy Sebastian, Dave Maturin, Adam Wygant to replace Chris Alexander as the Eagle representative, Brian Burrows as a co-chair, Laura Campbell as a co-chair, Dave Hamilton, and Pat Skevich as co-chair. For the tri-chairs, we have Pat, Brian, and Laura stated. For the models committee, we have Katie Lindstrom and Dave Hamilton. For data, Brian Burrows and Megan Tinsley. Conservation and efficiency, Emily Fennell and Kelly Turner. And implementation committee, Doug Needham and Laura Campbell. And we already did the business of eliminating the new topics. For anybody that like those read again in the room?
I'll make a motion, we adopt. Us.
So,
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries, thank you.
We
Appreciate
had a
it.
really slick election.
It helps when it's uncontested.
Makes it easy, I think, for, don't ever take any offense, and I will, take the liberty of saying, if anybody is participating here and you are secretly wanting a shot at assuming some of these responsibilities, raise your hand. This isn't incredibly competitive. We try to run everything here open, honestly. So it shouldn't matter which one of us do these roles because it takes everybody's consensus. So, if you've held back, not wanting to rock the boat, not rocking the boat as much as you think. And, you can just speak up to any of us and we will help get you in the next. All right, thank you for all that. Next agenda item is an update from Eagle.
And I have a Doug, as you said in the motion, because I went to show my screen, and then Dave approved it, seconded it, okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Here's the program update for the Eagles Water Use Program. So I'll start off with summarizing hiring updates in GRMD. Been quite busy lately. Update on some of the 2020 recommendations implementation. Progress update on the Eagle Groundwater Data Management System. A status update on the drilling in Montreal drilling in Michigan Aquifer, and then calendar year metrics for part 327. So the hiring updates, interviews were completed for the geology specialist 13 in the groundwater data unit. GRMD, the duties of that position include managing Eagle's groundwater data management system or using the Equus software package, and also overseeing the grant to become a data provider to the USGS's National Groundwater Monitoring Network. We're scheduled interviews for the geologist 9 through 11 GIS support position, also in the groundwater data unit. And interviews are scheduled for the section manager for the groundwater and geological services section where both the groundwater data unit and water use assessment unit are housed. Backfilling and currently backfilling Clay Dupree's position in my unit to do site-specific reviews. That position was just posted, and that posting closes on September 18th.
So Jim, all of these right now are in some type of advertisement or they're in process or we're waiting?
Correct. They're either the geologist 9 through 11 SSR, that's posted. Posting closes September 18th. The other postings have closed and are either in the process. The 13 specialist has gone through the interview. GS support, we're scheduling interviews, and the section manager interviews are scheduled as well. Implementation updates for some of the 2020 recommendations. So the updating the tools, aquifer properties, and also improvements to the tool user interface. There's a bid review team of DTMB and Eagle staff that are reviewing bids that were submitted for both of those projects that were lumped into one big IT project, and an award should be done pretty quickly within the next couple of weeks. The Michigan Hydrologic Framework and the Michigan Integrated Water Management Database.
I just want to correct. So the properties that was lumped with the user interface vendors.
Yeah.
But they've been released by, and so that's moving forward, is that correct?
It was out for bids and bid packages came back and there were bid team meetings that reviewed the packages and we're pretty darn close to finalizing that.
Okay, so whoever's gonna do the work is not chosen.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the grant agreement for the Michigan Hydrologic Framework and Michigan Integrated Water Management Database projects has now been signed by both MSU and Eagle. Signed grant agreement is out, so moving forward with that. Next, the groundwater data management system, as I reported last month, EarthSoft was selected as the contractor to develop that project, and we're going to be using their environmental quality information system, otherwise known as Equus. And we've got weekly development team meetings that are in progress, so that's going to be ongoing, and likely it will be a phased implementation. Most likely starting with first well logic, getting well logic incorporated into Equus. So all the well logs and well logic, and early phase, all the data that's already in an electronic format, get that into the Equus, and then subsequent phase, we'll have to go scan and upload all the hard copy data that's siloed throughout Eagle. Initially starting with groundwater data, but future phases will also include other environmental media. Stay tuned. Okay, the next one, leaning in the back there, if you want to jump in, feel free. Construction work at Aqua Bounty facility, that's the aquaculture facility just over the border in Pioneer, Ohio, continues to be delayed. Eagle Remediation Redevelopment Division's Geological Services section drilled shallow and deep monitoring wells at the Amboy Township Hall in Hillsdale County. Which is, you can't see my cursor, but where it says MAW 01S/D on the left side of the screen there. And then they drilled shallow, intermediate, and deep wells where it says MAW 02SID, just north of the border there in the center. So shallow, intermediate, and deep.
Sorry to interrupt, Jim, but, who is it who's drilling these wells or did drill these wells?
That's our Eagle Remediation and Remediation Redevelopment Division, RRD,
Okay.
Geological Services. We have so part of the overall funding package for the mission to WUAC, WRD pulled back 105,000 and set up an agreement to have RRD go out and drill the wells for us. And then the balance of that is being used by USGS to create and calibrate a groundwater model for the mission to WUAC.
Jim, on this project, it keeps getting delayed. Is there any thought that it might get killed for this process of dying, or is it like it can go forward?
Well, we have to touch base with, they ran into some delays, problems with the equipment, caused delays, and they had to be rescheduled, but where we're at right now, we need to touch base with RRD and see how much money is left in the budget. They would have, if there's enough funding available yet in the pot, they would have to reschedule and drill at a third location.
Yeah, I'm sorry, when I said project, I'm saying Aquabody itself.
Oh, Aquabody itself. It's part of the delay was court cases involving utility corridor access. I've heard rumors about financial difficulties, but not hearing a whole lot of information. So in the meantime, we're getting wells drilled.
Still trying to move forward. Yeah, a lot of obstacles.
As far as I know, yes. So in any event, we will have these wells drilled and be able to start collecting groundwater elevation data before they ever start pumping. So we'll have some background data as well as being able to monitor groundwater should they start pumping. Then USGS will be installing transducers in the monitoring wells to record groundwater elevation data. And the groundwater elevation data will be posted on USGS's website. The table on the right of the screen there shows you the screen interval depths for the wells. Michigan Geological Survey logged the soil descriptions, collected the soil core samples, and did some sieve samples for grain size analyses. Eagle RRD Geological Services also logged the soil descriptions and also did downhole gamma ray logging. As I said, USGS is going to install the water level gauges in the wells. Anything you want to add, Leah? And we've got some internal discussions going on. There may be other funding sources available if the MOU is out of money. We may be able to access other funding sources to fund drilling at a third location.
Jim, there is a group of the 9 county commissioners for the counties that overlie the Mission Doe Aquifer who meet periodically because they want to get updates on research that's going on and other things. Is this something that you feel like either your team or somebody from RRD or maybe Michigan Geological Survey can provide them an update on if I put you guys in touch with each other?
Yeah, yep, I've been in touch with some of them already,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're basically waiting to see the final write-ups from RRD and then,
Okay.
yep, that's the plan, is to share it with local units of government. I'm sure Ohio DNR will be also interested in
Yep.
other groups as well, so
Okay.
we're happy to, public records, so we're happy to share them with anybody that's interested.
Okay. Yep. Robin Kemp at Williams County she's kind of the point person to coordinate that. So I'll put you in touch with her.
Okay, good.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, moving on. Large quantity withdrawal registers, registrations.
Got a hand up,
as of-
Jim.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I
Howard?
don't know if this is Abby Eaton. I don't know if I missed it, but so Aqua Bounty is not paying for any of that testing or monitoring?
Correct. Their Aqua Bounty did submit a monitoring plan to Ohio DNR that did include surface water and monitoring wells, both in Ohio and in the state of Michigan, but to my knowledge, they haven't done any drilling, at least they haven't notified Eagle. So we're going ahead and doing our thing and we'll keep in touch with Ohio DNR.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about Mission Dome? Okay. Then moving on to the metrics. So as of September 1st, we've authorized 160 registrations through the water withdrawal assessment tool and 94 site-specific review registrations. Of those SSRs that we received, in addition to the 94 that were authorized, 2 were denied, 7 were retracted by applicants, and 9 were still pending as of September 1st. Timeliness, the average number of business days to complete an SSR in calendar year 24 as of beginning of September is 15.5 days. 36% of the SSRs were completed within the 10 business day deadline. We have an outlier. One SSR was 126 days late, which threw off that average. Staff workload issues are the primary cause for this delay.
What were the 2 denied for?
Anna, do you have that handy, or we can
Yeah.
look it up and get back with you?
Yeah. I know there's that, we keep talking about a water user group kind of in those regional areas. So I'm curious if it's denied just because it's not available, you didn't pull together, there wasn't that work group created or what, so.
Well, in general, if we're not able to authorize a site-specific review as proposed, we try to work with the applicant and agent to see if we can modify the request, be able to issue a modified registration. If we're unable to do that, then we have to deny it. And their options include forming a water user committee. They could apply for a permit. They can go collect additional data and resubmit.
Jim, the number of site reviews relative to number of authorizations, it looks like maybe around 40% or so. Is that about the right number?
Do some quick math here.
And actually, there were more site reviews than another 10 or 15 top of that.
So total.
And that bottom number was originally 112, you changed it to 94.
Yeah.
If not 94 authorized, that's
Right.
112 requested.
So that's, the percentage is pretty high. SSRs.
Right.
And I guess what I'm going to question is that we're trying to look for ways that maybe we can cut down on the SSRs or some of the things that are in the pipeline. And are you finding that these SSRs are coming back to the same water management area again and again and again because they're right up on the boundary? And I guess I'm trying to explore that how much of this is just repetition and you just have to go through those because we've been through it. versus you really need to do some more detailed study in an area to help make decisions ahead of time, make it even possibly part of the tool to expedite things. Do you have any sense of that?
How frequently they're occurring, like the denials are occurring in the same watershed, so we could.
No, my question is dealing with how many SSRs are popping up again and again and again. So it's because water management area is near the edge, so anybody who comes in, they're gonna trigger an SSR. I'm just trying to get a sense for how repetitive is that.
Yeah, how often they occur in a watershed that's empty essentially. I mean, offhand, I don't know.
I guess in the models, I'd like to have some discussion on that at some point.
Yeah,
Because I think things we're trying to do ultimately would help with that. But you could have some sense of how big of an issue this is and how you're handling it.
yeah, we could look at the data and figure out, sure. And we could even do it year to year at a larger scale, than just the year to day, if that helps. Is there any way towards that? I was just wondering if there's any way, like, forgive me if certain information's protected, and I'm just being naive, I'm not trying to bait anybody, but like thinking through like a map of where all the new registrations are, and then having a different color dot for the SSRs, just to see like, thinkies that kind of asking like, is it just, are you dealing with 10, 15, 20 SSRs over the course of the year coming from a handful of water management areas where it's just, there's a problem there, and it's just causing you that process over and over and over again. I wonder if mapping could help.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
it makes it visually apparent. Sure.
Yeah, that's something our GIS savvy staff could do.
Yeah, it's an easy job to map that one. And in general, Dave, your question is, yes, it's not the same property owner or perspective withdrawal proposal that keeps coming back, if that's what you're asking. It's more, it's geographic
area.
Yeah, so the numbers would be way more skewed towards sites because we have a lot of people who don't even bother to apply. They've been through it before, they still want that withdrawal, and they can come back because conditions do change. Registrations expire, and being installed, constructed, different reasons like that, so sometimes they might come back and try again, but for the most part, it's new property, new sites, but still in the same water management areas.
And that's what I wanted.
That is exactly what that.
One of that's the parts that was denied this round was one that has come back a couple times. It's changed in watershed, so it doesn't get denied. The other one was just due to there being a soft resident.
We talked as we developed this process that we're not negating their current rights. Someone that's been not denied, they could claim their current rights and go to court. That would be the vehicle to, but nobody's tried that. It's gone there.
We also didn't have a particularly dry year.
Right.
I mean, that's, that's always the warning that I try to provide is the next really, whopper of a drought that we have, somebody's gonna sue somebody.
Well, this gets us to the next thing that has yet to happen, and that's have the water user groups, where that's gonna come from, and I was part of that team that was looking at those groups and what was likely to happen with them. And, we were, it's been not as successful as they hoped in terms of trying to put how it's gonna work. However, this is the answer that the legislature came up with to solve this problem. I think the map that shows us where these are is gonna clue us in fairly quickly if you follow Brian's suggestion that we, clue us into where the issues are gonna be and where we may have to see how this happens. Because right now we don't know who convenes it, who's in charge of it, how does it come about? And one of the last meetings we had, we were trying to figure out how could handle it. And on the committee, they weren't aware that there's a mediation service statewide that actually handles disputes of different sorts. And that this is a friend of mine's in the Northern Michigan chapter of it, and explained that this is exactly what they do. And so perhaps that we may be looking at having to try to figure out how to convene this. Because the next step in this, as we start to bump up against the, showing that there isn't water, is gonna be, we have to have these water user groups. And if that doesn't hold up, how does the rest of this process hold up?
It's one of a few untested theories. In
Yeah,
a program 15 years in, there is also caveat that there is language in the statute that states something to the effect of nothing in the statute prevents a property owner from exercising his or her rights under common law.
right.
So
So are there any, conditions under which the department is required to form a users group?
once we declare that an adverse resource impact has happened, if a water user committee hasn't already been formed, then Eagle is required to convene a meeting. And then meeting convenes, we make our case. The group goes back, they have 30 days to come up with their own plan. If they don't come up with a plan, then per the statute, Eagle can propose a plan, but the water users are not required to follow that plan.
My question simply, was there a scenario? That's,
Yeah.
Thank you. Frank, that mediation group, could you send, information on that to the, entire council? That would be interesting.
Sure.
Do they deal with water issues or are they much broader?
Well, they deal with any issues where there's two parties that need mediation.
Okay,
And so it can be anything from a family to
right,
the
okay.
county and,
That'd be interesting to find out.
yeah, so I'll get that information and send it.
And we've had some farmers use that service before for disputes with USDA, for instance, over, anything from wetland determinations to, disaster payments and that kind of thing. So they have a pretty broad basis of things that they'll mediate on. And they bring in different experts to be the mediator, depending on what the subject of the dispute is.
And they're funded so that the service is free.
Okay, so the top graph is just the timeliness trend in percent of SSRs completed within the 10 business days. And then the bottom graph is tracking the percent that are completed within the 10 business days. Pre-screening review metrics that we do, these are proposed large quantity withdrawals for public water supplies. We do essentially an SSR for Eagle Drinking Water Division. So from January to beginning of September, 19 pre-screening reviews were completed. 5 ended up being Zone A. Another 2 were Zone A geology paths. And what I mean by geology paths is that we concluded that the pumped aquifer is not hydraulically connected to surface water. 8 were Zone B, 2 Zone C. We didn't have any denials. And another 2 were authorized as replacing existing baseline capacity. Andy's are 327 permits. So in general, new or increased withdrawals over 2 MGD. As of September 1st, Andy issued 1 permit and currently 5 applications are in process. Is there compliance? A question, Dave?
Yeah, these typically municipalities.
Generally, only if it's for like a sanitary sewer project for the construction dewatering phase, it's something like time in municipality, so most of them are saying we're all 5 pending or sand ground permits.
Okay.
Compliance metrics to date. As of beginning of September anyways. As of September 1st. So we sent out 71 compliance communications, of which 3 after the fact registrations. So we discovered a withdrawal that wasn't registered before, but there's enough stream flow to do an after the fact registration. 4 requests for missing pump information. So we find a well log that doesn't have the pump capacity listed. 52 revised registrations. So where withdrawal is installed and or operated differently than what was originally authorized either by the tool or by a SSR. And there's stream flow available to authorize as built as operated, so we revised the registration. And then another 12 compliance communications where we're contacting the property owners to verify that they in fact installed the withdrawal. Then we sent out a total of 15 first violation notices. Are there any questions?
Right. Remind me, what's the nature of the pre-screening reviews? Who asked for those? What's the situation where you do those?
Jill gets a request from Eagle Drinking Water and Environmental Health Divisions, so a newer increased public water supply system. And essentially, Jill does a site-specific review and provides her comments back to Drinking Water, and then Drinking Water over and above that, make sure that they meet the other criteria under the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jim? Good. Here again, thank you.
Same thing on mine.
I appreciate that. Go back, this is just, agenda item number 9 is just a reminder of our next couple of meeting dates. We've talked about them a bit, but it's October 8th, November 12th, December 10th. These are all going to become, even more increasingly critical for us to, meet our statutory charge of getting reports submitted, in December. Any questions about those?
And it's just a reminder, new recommendations, we want to get those before the October meeting. We want to have everybody review the draft report, the complete draft report by the November meeting, and then we're going to look at the final report by the December meeting.
Very good. Next. It's an opportunity for open comments, either from the public, or anybody in person. These do not have to be about agenda items. We'll start with in the room. Does anybody wish to make any open comments? Not seeing any. How about online? Nothing.
Nope.
Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for making the effort to be here. We got through our business pretty quick, so you got some extra time left today. I appreciate the hardship that it took a lot of you to travel and get in here today, but I appreciate being able to move through our business. So thank you very, very much. Because we have quorum, we'll do the whole official thing. Make a motion that we adjourn. Doug seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. And we'll be in touch about the October meeting. Thank you very, very much.